G'day guys. Jesus, that's blown out. Maybe if I get a bit closer it'll be better. Maybe if I just stand out of the way. Yeah. I'm here in my garage. Just want to talk about my Ferrari and my knowledge.
Here in my garage, just bought this new Lamborghini. You know what I like a lot more than materialistic things? Knowledge.
I don't know if you guys ever saw that Ty Lopez ad that bombarded my YouTube forever. Anyway, I'm here in my lounge room with my plants, with my jungle, and I have a bunch of chores that I need to get done. We've got about an hour before I have to pick up the kids from daycare, so what do you say we just get into it and yeah, see where the plants take us. Let's do this. Okay, so let me get my little mat out here, hopefully without making too much noise. And first things first, I have a Paraíso Verde. I always want to say Paraíso Verde. I'm married to a Brazilian and we speak Portuguese at home. And the Paraíso Verde is actually Spanish, but it's exactly the same in Portuguese. Paraíso Verde. And it just means green paradise. Anyway, so I'm gonna set up here. This looks good, and I'll go grab it. Okay. So here's what we've got. I thought this was a pretty good deal. I think I ended up getting this for about 50 bucks. And it was just the base that had obviously been propagated a few times or chopped. The leaf looked good and it had a growth point, but I've had it now for about 2 months and literally nothing has happened. And I've seen very little root growth around the edges too. So I'm not sure if this thing's suffering from root rot or not. So I might give you guys a little look as I pull him out. I put these in today. So I was changing all these over. Should have thought ahead. Maybe I'll just put it in here. Okay, so yeah, I've got a sneaking suspicion something is not quite right beneath the surface here because literally nothing has happened since getting it and potting it up. So I really do, yeah, okay. We got some rot issues.
Well, that's not good.
So I think this has just been overwatered by me. This arrowroot is definitely cooked. This one here. And there may be some OK roots down the bottom here, but I think what I'm gonna have to do, and yeah, I think this doesn't look like it's my mix, so I might have used the mix that it came in, and this has just held on to way too much moisture. Bugger. Well, at least I checked. So yeah, I think I'm gonna wash this off and then I'm just gonna transfer it to semi-hydro. I think that's gonna be the best thing for it. So let's go do that. Okay, so when doing this, usually what I try and do is heat the water up, switch over to filtered water. I'm just washing the soil off my hands. It takes ages for this water to actually heat up. So whilst that's happening, I'm gonna go get some leca and one of my vases or vases that I use for semi-hydro. Okay, so I've just poured out about as much as I think I'll need and I'll give it a good sort of rinse. Usually people do recommend that you soak this overnight so that it can have as much of the water and moisture inside the leca as possible, but because I hadn't sort of planned this video ahead of time, I am not going to do that, and instead we'll just put a bit of extra water in there and it should just soak it up fine. Should be alright. I've done that in the past and there have been no issues. Okay, third time, just let it soak it all up. Change the view a little bit for you guys. Okay, the water's also warm now. I might just let this soak over on the side here whilst I give these roots a good wash. So yeah, this does not look amazing. There is some growth here, so not all the roots are cooked, but they were obviously having a bit of a battle in the the medium that I had put them in. Yeah, there's some good root growth down the bottom here, so I don't think all is lost, but there is definitely, oh, that's getting a bit hot. There is definitely some root rot here. You'll see if I pull this, it's gonna come right off.
Gross.
So I'm just gonna have to cut that and remove it. That whole thing is a goner. Bugger. Should have checked earlier, but yeah, the plant didn't have a lot of foliage on it, so it's sort of hard to tell whether or not it was suffering because this yeah, it didn't go limp or anything like that. So, all right. Is there a bit of rot here at the bottom? No, it seems to be okay. I think that's about as good as we're going to get. It looks like it was in pond or something previously, but you can see there is a little bit of growth here. There are some white points here and in here, so hope is not lost, but I'm going to try and clear off some of this rotting roots. And just look for the soft stuff that is browning and not looking too hot, and just rip that off, and it should hopefully bounce back. Okay, yeah, there's actually quite a bit of root rot here. It's amazing to see how much these plants want to live though, right? Even though they're suffering from this, new growth is coming out, and the plant's just like, I'm not done yet, I'm not done. Did I say it was over? Did I say I was done? I'm not done. I only just got started. Right. Sort of embarrassed, but I guess this is just part and parcel of having a lot of plants, guys. Sometimes you don't keep on top of things and you miss things, but it's all a learning process. Hopefully we can get this guy to really bounce back. All right, so I think that's all I'm gonna really do. Might remove that bit at the bottom there, that bit. There's a lot around here that seems to be dodgy. Yeah. So now, I'm just gonna clean up the sink, get rid of all this root, rot, and mush and other stuff in here. Last night's rice. Okay, switch back to filtered. Again, give it a bit of a rinse, and then I'm going to pour the leca in. Kind of get it to float up a bit, so again, just sort of rinsing it. I might take a little bit, put that at the bottom here, and then I'm going to take the plant and just try and sink it down. So I guess first and foremost, I put a layer here so that water can sit there and the roots aren't at the very bottom sitting in the water no matter what. I'm then going to, see if I can get you a bit closer. I am then going to just sit the plant where I want it to sort of sit, probably about there, and then just fill in with the leca. So there we go. Now, obviously you can use whatever sort of solution you want to use in here. The main thing is just make sure it's pH balanced, and if you've got it in semi-hydro like this for a prolonged period of time, you need to use a hydro fertilizer series so that you're getting everything for the plant, having everything in here that it needs. Because sometimes if you have moved things from soil into hydro like this, they may not get everything they need if you just use normal fertilizer. So yeah, I'm still learning this stuff too. So if you have any tips and tricks for semi-hydro, definitely be sure to let me know. So for now, I'm just going to use my normal fertilizer and probably fill it up about halfway here, so I can see that the roots, the white roots, are sitting down here, and I'll just be keeping an eye on these over the next few weeks and making sure they stay white and they don't turn brown, and hopefully that they shoot out more roots as well. If you want to encourage things along a little bit, put it somewhere that it's got a bit of warmth to it as well, so you could put a heat mat below it, and I've found that that really speeds things up with the root development. If the water's at about 20, 22 degrees, then it tends to do a lot faster. So back in a tick, I'll get my fertilizer. Okay. So here we go, and I'm just going to fill up to about halfway. There we go. So a little bit of the root ball, the root mass, is down here sitting below the water. Then we've got a little bit above it. The water should also wick up through the leca here and keep everything nice and moist. And yeah, hopefully in the next couple of weeks we see a bit of movement here, which will be a good sign showing that the plant's got what it needs now from its root system. So I'm gonna go put this guy back, and this is where he's sitting. So I've got a heat mat here. It's set to, I think, about 22 degrees or so. Again, I'll just keep an eye on it and make sure it's not too hot. It's been okay for the prop boxes. A good sign usually is that if you've got water at the bottom of the prop box. It's not too hot, so it's not evaporating all the water out to the top. If you're getting heaps of condensation at the top constantly, which I had as a problem down here with this dodgier mat, and I've had to put some stuff underneath it to bring the temperature down because I can't adjust it. There was condensation all over the top, like constantly, and the moss at the bottom here was effectively bone dry when I checked on it. So anyway, these ones are doing really well. Yeah, I guess let's continue. Okay, next thing's next. I got this Alocasia baginda the other day. So I think this is the dragon scale. I think it's absolutely beautiful. It's got like 5 different plants in here, which is amazing. But the only thing I noticed that was an issue is that it was in a non-draining pot. Alocasias make me nervous at the best of times in draining pots because I always seem to have a... Oh no, you're joking. Okay, it is. Man, I have just made an absolute fool of myself. I honestly had no idea that that was sitting in a pot. I thought it was just sitting inside of this because when looking in there, I'm not sure if you guys can see, the soil was packed all around the edge. I did not even know. When I moved it then, I was like, oh, it's just coming out. It must be in a plug. There you go. It was in a pot the whole time. Well, that's embarrassing. Well, we're here, so I think we'll repot it anyway because the soil they tend to use for these guys is so dense. It always kind of makes me a bit nervous. I just tend to kill them. So I think I'm going to take it out and put it in a lighter mix. We'll have a look at the roots, I guess. Wow. Probably has just outgrown this pot anyway. Maybe. It probably had a little bit longer in there, but this is so dense. Like I can feel how moist it is. It's just so dense. So with my watering regime, where I think I'm probably an overwaterer, I don't think this guy would do too well with me. You know what? I think I might do this with water because I feel like I am going to destroy some of these roots otherwise. I might just do this over at the sink. Come with me. All right, so again, I want kind of warm water, put it on the filtered stuff. And yeah, we just have at it, I guess. Try and wash away this dirt. And I'm keeping an eye out, hoping that I see some corms as well coming off the sides, because it's always good to propagate these guys. Seems to be going well, seems to be doing the trick slowly but surely. It is pretty densely rooted here. I don't know if you guys can see around the top, but this soil is really dense. If you guys have any tricks and tips for how to take care of alocasias too, let me know in the comments below, but I have a very bad habit of overwatering them and sending them into another life, you know, sending them to the afterlife. So that is why I'm keen to repot this one. I would potentially put this in semi-hydro. There is that option too. I have done that with other ones to save them, but let's just give it a go in soil and see how it goes. See how it goes. Okay. I'm not sure how much more to really try and remove. Jeez, this seems to be pretty thick, this root ball. Right, I might leave it like that. And there's quite a bit of soil here, but it kind of stops after about an inch, and then everything down below has gone. So I might just put this like this into the pot. So come back to the table with me. God, I'm making a mess. I'm so... I totally thought that that was just planted straight into these pots, because they often do that just because they're wanting to get rid of them. They want to get rid of these pots, and the plants often plummet in value, you know, so these guys are so common now, they can't really be sold for much, and so they just combine them with pots to get rid of the pots. I think we're going to need bigger than this. I don't know if this is overkill, but nah, it should be fine. We'll see how it goes. Just don't overwater it, Pete. Just take it easy. For the love of God, Pete. Just take it easy. All right, there we go. You know what's the worst, guys? Potting up plants with dry soil when your hands are wet. Just grosses me out. I don't know what it is. I think it's just because all the soil sticks way more to your hands. But yeah, first world problems. Right. So my mix here is pretty much a little bit of soil, just quality potting soil from nurseries, wherever you want to get it. And then large chunky perlite. I've got like tan bark, wood chunks, wood chips in here. I've got a bit of pumice as well, some charcoal, just anything to kind of chunk it up a bit and allow drainage. And then what else? Worm castings, and I think that's about it. But ideally, I just want it to drain really well, but also have enough in there to hold onto a bit of moisture, because I find if there's no soil or worm castings, the water just goes straight through and it dries out within a day or two, and I just can't be bothered watering that frequently. So ideally, I would have it where I just need to water it once a week. That's sort of how I try and mix the soil up. So I keep an eye on things, and if I make a batch and I notice that the plants are needing to be watered every other day, and again, assuming the roots haven't developed to the point where the roots are doing all the work, taking the water out, then I'll add a bit of soil or something else a little finer to the mix. Next time, you could probably add sand, you could add anything that's finer than whatever the mix is, right? All right, there we go. So I might write up a nicer little tag here. Alocasia times Amazonica. Oh, really? How does that work? Why is it baginda? And then it says on the back here, Alocasia times Amazonica. One of them is the genus and the other is a different species. That's confusing. All right, so A dot baginda. Dragon scale. I need a finer pen. Okay, and then pew, chuck it in there, and I will take it over to the sink again and give it a nice water with my nutrient solution, which is diluted down by 50% of what they suggest. 50% on top. Wait, on top? What am I trying to say? It's 50% of what they recommend. So instead of 10 mils per litre, it's 5. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, and then I'll just give it a thorough watering in. That should probably do. Just to really make sure that the soil is completely saturated. What you can do too, before it's completely finished draining out, is chuck it into a saucer so a bit of the water builds up, and then it hopefully sucks that water back up into the soil if it's gone through too quickly. Because like I can see on the side here, quite a few dry spots. I'm not sure if you can see that, but there are quite a few dry pockets in here. So I might just let that sit for a while so that that soil fully hydrates. And then I'll let it drain out. And I'm gonna get rid of the soil that is sitting in the sink here. Okay, so I'll come back to that in 10 or 20 minutes, and we've got some more chores in the meantime. All right, so next on the list of things to do is to deal with this top cutting that I have of Monstera. I think this was one of the first cuttings that I ever took when I was learning to propagate Monstera. And initially I had it in this jar and put it in sphagnum moss, and it was taking forever, but eventually it rooted really well. So it sort of took off, right? But when I was trying to take it out of the jar, I accidentally yanked on it a little too hard, pulled on it a bit too hard, and the main aerial root, I don't know if you guys can see it, this thing here, the reflection of the light's probably not helping, that brown thing in the back there, it had all of the growth coming off it and it snapped. So I was back to square one. So probably 2.5 months ago, I put it back in the jar, but just with water to see how it would go and if it would just push out roots. And it went bananas, guys. Like, have a look at all these secondary roots growing off the main root that popped out of the base of the cutting here. It just went nuts. It's looking quite green because I don't think I actually have changed this water over since I put it in here. But I also put some nutrients in there about a month ago and more recently because I knew that the plant was probably starting to need it, considering it had been propagating for ages. And I destroyed its root system. Anyway, so I'm just gonna pop this guy up in soil, and I'm thinking if I have any other cuttings that I can kind of add to it, because I've got a lot of Monsteras all over the place, and it seems like a waste to try and sort of have them all individually on their own. And I am looking up the top here, and I think this might be a large form. So yeah, it may not make too much sense to put it with a small form Monstera if I accidentally do that. You know what, I think I'm just gonna plant it by itself. and we'll see how it goes. So we go grab a pot and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so I've just got a, geez, I don't know what this is, maybe 14 centimeter, 13 centimeter nursery pot here. I'm just gonna reuse one that I haven't cleaned because it's Monstera, they're hardy as, and I have a cash pot, that I got from Kmart that was cheap as chips. So yeah, I think this was about $5. So I lashed out on that. I think they were half price and I got 6 of them just because, yeah. Anyway, let's pop this guy up. So same deal, just gonna put a bit of soil at the bottom here. Pull this guy out and hopefully this time not rip the roots off. So I'll give you guys a front row seat in case I do make a fool of myself. But look at that, they look fan-bloody-tabulous. Look at that. Whew. Aren't they nice? Man, there's just something about seeing those yellow tips and the white roots just thriving, especially when you see them like a net like that. It's just like, oh, so nice.
She's so nice.
Okay, so I'm just gonna plonk it down. Because it's a tip cutting, I can probably bury it quite a way because the next leaf should come out of here. I don't have to worry about a node activating and the growth point being buried. So I'm gonna bury it down and then hopefully it can stand upright all right once it is all filled in. And it's gonna be interesting to see how it goes. So often people say that you should transition plants from water into moss and then into soil, but I'm just not gonna do that. So let's just see how this Monstera goes. Hopefully it hits the ground running. The only interesting thing that I have noticed that's probably worth mentioning for you guys is that no new growth has activated or sprouted out. I haven't noticed any kind of pregnancy, as they would say, when they see the leaf start to sort of develop in this sheath. I haven't noticed that at all for this entire time, and it's been months and months and months that it's been propagating. So obviously the conditions weren't right. Maybe just as it was about to, I ripped the roots off and screwed that up. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long it takes now for some movement to occur here. So hopefully I'll keep you guys updated with that. But yeah, there we go. And the amazing thing is, this leaf has just been looking great the entire time, like holding itself out so nicely, compared to this leaf, which has just kind of been floppy. So I'm not sure if this just didn't harden off properly before I took the cutting, and that's the reason that it's kind of limp, or what. But yeah, it's interesting seeing one of them sort of looking like it needs watering and the other one looking like it's living its best life. So I'm gonna go give this a water. Time to hydrate some soil, guys.
Jesus, I'm so thirsty.
Okay, so this guy is probably all good now and can probably drain off. What I find is useful if you don't want to remove too much water by, you know, doing the shaking up and down, is just turning it sideways and seeing how much drips out. So if you have it on an angle like this, it tends to pull down near one of the holes and it will come out. But that feels okay, and I'm just going to keep an eye on it. If these suddenly go limp in the next day or so, I know that I've overwatered it, and I'll chuck it on a heat mat for a little while. Another thing that I do at times is I will just push the plug down here, let this water drain through the plant that I'm watering. So I'm just going to chuck that all in there, and then afterwards let it pool down here in the sink, as you should be able to see as it comes through. Here we go. And then I just put the plant here and let it kind of stew in its own water. So I guess it gets like a secondary watering, and that's a way of just not having to burn through a lot of fertilizer, you know, because I don't know how much, maybe 80%, 90% of it is just literally washing through the plant and not being used. So I try and reuse it by just making sure that I save the water here, and if there's loads of it going through, I just put the plant in there and let it soak it up for a bit, similar to what I did with the Alocasia. Okay, so I might just leave these two here to drain for a while, and we will get on to the next task, and I have to think about what the next task is. I might clean my mat first, and then I'll be back. Okay, so the next issue or chore I think we can probably go through is one, potting up all of these siltepecana cuttings. I think I've got like 30 of them in here. I think it was 35 at the last count.
Yeah, that was a little excessive.
And I have a Pothos Global Green, so I don't know if that's Epipremnum aureum or, yeah, it'll be Epipremnum aureum, and it'll be a different, I guess, cultivar or whatever it is of that. I chucked it in here just to hopefully get it to root. You can see it's thick stem here, but I put a few things in here with all of these Monstera siltepecanas, and they just went bananas. So when did I put this in? This was since the 28th of the 7th. So it's been about a month and a half, and that is all the root growth. They went nuts. They were sitting on a heat mat. And so, yeah, but the other day, I think in one of the videos, I'll try and remember which one and put it up here somewhere for you guys if you want to check it out. I ended up potting up some of my propagations that I had in prop boxes, and I put some siltepecanas here that I'd done from wet sticks for the first time, which was a cool little achievement. I hadn't propagated anything from wet stick, but they went bonkers, bananas. And then I potted these guys up without really having a close look, thinking they were all Adansonii. I know, it's pretty obvious they're not, but it's pretty obvious that these guys are also siltepecana. So I'm gonna have to undo that mistake now because, yeah, I don't really need siltepecana growing all over the place in different areas, and I would just rather have some sort of a huge basket of the stuff. So I'm gonna go and get a pot to put those guys in, and I guess with this one, we will just have to unpot it, take them out, and then put the Adansonii back in a sec. So, getting kind of a flatter pot here because I've got a lot of cuttings that are gonna need to take up a lot of space, but the roots aren't gonna really sort of justify a really large, deep pot. So first things first, I probably have to empty these guys out. And it's definitely embarrassing when you potted something up and you have to unpot it very soon after the fact. So, all right, separate these guys out. How many have I got in here? Might just be easier to take out the Adansonii, of which I have 2. And they're all sort of connected together. Okay, 1 Adansonii, and gonna come out. What's going on? There we go. Gotcha. 2 Adansonii. This pot might actually be too big for these guys now. Ah, screw it. Chuck you back in there, see how you go. Oh, there's a third one. Almost forgot ya. So let's remove these siltepecanas and put the soil back in. Sorry, you guys probably can't see what I'm doing because I'm not paying attention. Oof, again, potting up with wet soil. It's kind of a bit gross. What do you guys prefer? Do you prefer wet soil or dry soil? This feels like mud. Okay, so there we go. Adansonii on their own. All right, so now, I guess we will take these siltepecana out of here. Got a whole bunch of them in here. Got like 5 or so. All right, I guess we'll just keep you guys clumped together. Probably put this soil into the pot already. And then group you together with these guys. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I'm not gonna have enough hands, guys. So there's those. I guess we'll lie you guys sideways. And then the fun part. I tell you what, I definitely think it is true that if you put more cuttings together, they root faster. Because, as I said, these guys, within a week or 2, they were just pushing out ridiculous amounts of roots. I was really impressed. I'm not sure if they're ready to go yet. You could probably leave them in there longer, but I'm just sort of impatient and want a bit more space for myself. All right, and here's the Epipremnum, which doesn't seem to have done a great deal. So I might just leave that in the water. I don't know whether or not to just pot pot it up like this. These guys are all sort of stuck together. You know what? I might just get lazy and do that, to be honest, guys. There are some growing points that are below where the water was. I don't know if you can see this, but I think it's just going to make my life a great deal easier if I just do that and plonk it in. What do you reckon? You guys are probably screaming like, what are you doing? I've got, I don't know if you guys can see behind me, but I have more of these over there and I've got another basket of them over there. So it's not a big issue for me to sort of, I don't know, make sure these guys have the best start possible, but I'm just curious to kind of see how they go, how they're gonna thrive on neglect. All right, so this is kind of awkward. How am I gonna hold them low enough in the pot here without letting them go? All right, let's see if I can do that. Try and center them up as well. Yeah. But yeah, I'm hoping to really just get an absolutely epic lush basket out of these propagations and just have it just you know, like an afro of Monstera siltepecana. That'd be epic. Yeah. Okay, I think we are cooking with gas, guys. I think we are all good to go. It's pretty good. Bit scraggedy, but yeah, hopefully that should grow pretty quickly, I reckon. If I give you an update in a month or two, I think this is going to be going nuts. So I'll have to try and remember to do that. Let's go give it a water. See, and this is why I don't like wet soil. So I'm just not going to use fertilizer for this one. I'm just going to actually put some water in here into the sink, sit it in there, and then fill up a glass here and just water in around the edges. And hopefully hydrate all this new soil that I've just put in here. Okay. I think that's all good. Draining well. Just put it up here and let it do its thing. Let it drain, drain, drain. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me, doing some plant chores around the house. I'll do more of these in the future if you enjoy them. Let me know if you've got these plants and if you also have any tips and tricks and advice for me on how to propagate them the best, the fastest. You know, what methods have you had success with? What methods have you, not have had success with? And yeah, leave a comment below and I'll chat to you there. Anyway, thanks for joining me, guys. See you next time.